Hi folks, Mr. Long here. We're going to do a quick screencast on solving equations using some of the strategies that we did today. What I want to do first is just go over some big ideas. So I think we're okay with this one, right? Does 4 minus 1 equal 3? I think so. So what we want to do is, well, let's change all the signs on that and see if it's still true. What about negative 4 plus 1 equals negative 3. So in other words, I took the positive there and I made it negative. I took the negative there and I made it positive. And I took that 3, which is positive, and I made it negative. So let's see. Negative 4. So if I'm at negative 4 and I increase by 1, I end up at negative 3. So it appears that that works. Okay, so that means that anytime I can create a related fact by just switching the signs on each item in addition or subtraction. So that's going to help us as a relationship when we go to solve equations. So let's look at number 1. So number 1, you can see that it says negative 8 equals 7 minus x. Okay, so anytime, or the rule, if you will, is it's a lot easier to work with unknowns like x when they're positive, when there's a positive value in front. That's called the coefficient. So instead of making that 7 minus x, we want to make that plus x. Well, according to what we learned over here, if I change the sign on one thing in an equation, I have to change the sign on everything else. So that means that 7 has to become negative 7, and that negative 8 right here has to become positive 8. Okay. So now my goal is to isolate x. Well, negative 7 is on the same side as x. So how do I eliminate negative 7? Well, I add 7. But I can't balance things unless I add 7 on both sides. So that gets rid of negative 7 plus 7. That's 0. So I still have x over here, but now it's isolated. And then I do 8 plus 7 is 15. And there's my value of x. X equals 15. Okay, so the key things there is, just if I go through it, again, just to review, I noticed there was a negative, or a subtraction, in front of x. So I want to change that to a positive. How do I do that? I have to change that negative to a positive. That's a positive 7, because there's no sign in front of it at all. So I changed that to negative, which I did down here. And I had to change the negative 8 to positive 8. In our next step, we have to isolate the x. So I circle x. Once it's positive, I circle it and isolate it. But on the same side of the equation, here's your equal sign. On the same side of the equation was negative 7. The opposite of negative 7 is positive 7. So I add 7 to get 0, and I can cross it out. And on the other side, I can't keep my equation balanced unless I add 7 over there as well. So now I've got 8 plus 7 on the left side, which adds up to 15. So x equals 15. Let's do two-step equations. So if I look at this, I've got, I've got another one with, so 3 minus 4x. 3 minus 4x. So now what I have to do is change the signs once again. So how do I do that? I have to make, that's a positive 3, I'll make it negative, and that becomes plus 4x, and that will equal negative 27. So once again, I need to isolate 4x. Well, what's with 4x on this side? Let's see. It looks like it is a negative 3. Well, what's the opposite of negative 3? The opposite of negative 3 is to plus 3. But I can't just plus 3 on one side. I have to plus 3 on both sides to keep it balanced. So that's gone. All I'm left with is 4x, and that equals negative 27 plus 3. So, if you need your calculator, that's okay, but negative 27 plus 3 is going to add up to negative 24, and that's 4 x's, or 4 groups of x. Divide by 4, and x equals, 4 goes into negative 20. Let's look at this. 4 goes into negative 24, negative 6 times. But you can use a calculator for that. That's fine. Okay, so again, let's review. So I had a negative in front of the x, so what do I have to do? I need to change it to a positive. So the negative becomes positive, but I can't just change one item, one term. I have to change everything. That 3 is positive because there's no sign in front of it. I have to make it negative 3. That 27 is positive. I have to make it negative. And then I need to isolate. So how do I isolate? Well, I want to get 4x isolated by itself. So I have negative 3 plus 3. I add 3 to make that 0. Then I can cross it out. But it's not balanced unless I add 3 on the other side. So I end up with negative 27 plus 3 here. Okay, folks, so let's try another one. Here's an equation. Negative 10 equals 4 plus 7x. So I notice right away that it's a positive in front of the 7. So I circle 7x. And after I've circled the 7x, I know that the number, that means I have to isolate that. That's a 4. Is that 4 positive or negative? There's no sign in front of it, so it's positive. Well, the opposite of positive 4 is negative 4. But I can't just do negative 4 on one side and make one part of the equation less than the other side, so then it wouldn't be equal. So I have to make this decrease by 4 as well by minusing 4. So that gets rid of the 4 there. So I've got 7x on one side, and the other side I've got negative 10 minus 4. So with the calculator, I can type in negative 10 minus 4, or just do it in my head, and I get negative 14 equals 7 groups of x. Since there's 7 groups of x, I want to figure out what one group of x is. I divide both sides by 7. And I know that 7 goes into 14 twice, but it's negative 14, so it's negative 2. And that's my solution for x. Okay, folks, so hopefully that helps you in solving these. It's the exact same process every time. The thing you need to do first is check and see if it's a negative coefficient in front of x. That means the number in front of x, the number that multiplies into x. If it's negative, you need to change the signs of each item or each term in the equation. Hopefully that helps, and now you'll be able to finish the rest of your homework. Have a good night.